Yo, call me an animation the way you love inflation. Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome back to the Game Sketch. Today, and only today, we are here, that's right, to talk about Sonic in Japan versus Sonic in the West. This is actually a topic I've wanted to dive into for a while now, just because it's a really fascinating thing that's very unique to Sonic, because Sonic is a series that, obviously originated in Japan, and had its roots there, right? Now, it's obviously still, made there, right? But its major audience is here in the West. So I sort of want to dive into the things that, what are the good things about that? What are maybe the bad things about that? What are the things, the positives that come out from that? What are things you can see from more sides, and etc. And of course, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe to your boy, support the content, and all that jazz. We're trying to hit 50K by the end of the summer, so please just sub to your boy, please. Obviously, like I said, Sonic created in Japan, obviously has Japanese creators involved, and everything is designed, everything made in Japan, right? But what ended up happening right after, the initial Sega Genesis boom and all this stuff, once the Sonic game starts, popularize more with stuff like the GameCube and, the PS2 and all this stuff, and more Western audience, I feel like Sonic started losing relevance in Japan, especially when the game started to fumble and started to gain more traction in the West. You think of even stuff like Saturday morning cartoon that was in the West. You think of animes, like Sonic X that became mega popular here in the West. And then you think of the games. Now, I want to sort of dive a little deep into that. I'll get to animations in the later part. But starting off with the games, it's so interesting because pretty much every major Sonic game is made by Sonic Team. Sonic Team in Japan. And even when they aren't, it's made by maybe Dimps, who is also a Japanese creator. And in fact, the only really non-Japanese Sonic game developments that have happened have been like the Sonic Boom games, which, pretty much flopped. You got Sonic Mania, which is sort of like a co-creation type beat, because Sonic Team still worked on that game, and a lot of that team's work is in that game. But we did have that work with the West, and even a game like Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is completely made in the West, I'm pretty sure, by Katie and a bunch of the social media teams. So it's really interesting to see that, yeah, while the games are still developed there, they are starting to take a bit more cues from the Western side. And in fact, I still think, in a lot of ways, Japan has some advantages, right? First of all, the script. I know a lot of people criticize the scripts of Sonic games, right? That the Japanese ones, they stay true to the character a bit more. There's less, little slapstick comedy, especially during the 2010s era. But yeah, I think for the most part, I would like, them to hold closer to more the Japanese side of storytelling. But we also have the influence of Western storytelling in the Sonic games now, because, we have IDW writers, comic book writers working on the Sonic games, right? We're seeing the fact that, Ian Flynn, who's, worked on the writing of Sonic Frontiers. In fact, actually, to be fair about that, Sonic Team actually gave, Ian Flynn the story, and he sort of pieced it together with the dialogue and put everything together and put some ideas in there. But obviously, he's going to be continuing that through the Sonic DLC, and I would have no doubt that he's going to continue that for, future Sonic projects. And that's, again, where I think the two worlds meeting up definitely makes a lot more sense. I think a lot of, the people here that are passionate about Sonic know how they want to write that character. In fact, Ian Flynn is from the Sonic Comics line, which has been breath of fresh air for the series and has written in the characters very well. I know a lot of people have some issues with how some of the characters are written, but for the most part, the characters are at least well written. They're trying to be well written. They are being adapted and told into stories there, and I think incorporating that into the games makes a lot of sense, and I do want the core games to still be made in Japan. I do like Sonic Team a lot, obviously they've had some fumbles, but I think they understand the character. So the idea of, mixing obviously the influence of Sonic Team in Japan with maybe the writing skills of the West to create something, again, like Sonic Frontiers and what's coming in the future is honestly a great outcome. But I would also like to see more Western-like Sonic games, like games made in the West. Obviously, we have Sonic Chronicles, but to be fair, they were supposed to actually make more Sonic Chronicles games, but they got canceled apparently, and maybe those would have been better. But I do think, the idea of giving Sonic to more Western studios is amazing. Could you imagine a Sonic game made by Insomniac Studios? How insane would that be, right? Or even a Sonic game made by some indie team. Indie teams would be phenomenal with that. I would love, a Sonic team maybe made by maybe the Shovel Knight team or the Freedom Planet team, or I would love, even for different genres. I mean, Arc Systems working on a Sonic fighting game. They're Japanese though, but you know what I mean. Like the idea of Sonic maybe branching out to different devs. I don't know who would I even trust as a Western dev to work out. I really think it would be Insomniac, to be honest, or PlayStation in general. I think one of PlayStation Studios could make a banger Sonic game, and I'd love to see what they would do with that. But also a big part of Sonic games that's such a massive factor to Sonic and has everything, not everything, but a lot of things over, you know, the Japanese development side is the fan games, right? Pretty much every Sonic fan game has been made here in the West by, you know, a few dudes chilling, you know, at home in the basements or wherever the fuck. But Sonic fan games are pretty much a Western thing for Sonic. You know, it is something that was, you know, popularized here. It's people just working on these fan games, these 2D fan games and everything, whether it's 2D or 3D, whether it's been stuff like Sonic and the Fallen Star or Sonic, you know, Triple Trouble, all these, you know, all these fan games, there's a million of them. I could list Sonic EXE even, you know, all these things were made by fans in the West and sort of become their own subgenre, and honestly popularized Sonic more in the West during Days of Dark. I mean, it would be an understatement to say that Sonic wouldn't be where it is today without, you know, the fans. I think the fans have saved Sonic more than anyone would ever realize. Even like a game like, dude, Sonic 06, one of the notoriously worst games of all time, right, has been saved by fans, right, reworking on it with Project 06. It's like we are talking about a fan base that not only makes their own stuff with the series, but they go ahead and fix the problems that, you know, the Japanese, you know, side of development team, a Sonic team, you know, never got to finish or fix and all that. So seeing in general, even just like the custom sprites with Sonic Mania or the mods or everything with like Generations has lived on for years now, you know, just because of Sonic mods. So I think it cannot be understated how much, you know, we've technically gotten a lot through the fan games and the modding scene, which I think is a major factor in this. But I would also love to see more Japanese studios tackle on Sonic games. Again, man, I still to this day dream of a Sonic and Mario platformer, or even like what would a Sonic game made by Nintendo look like in general, right? Like I said, I would love a Sonic Arc Sys game. I would love a Sonic RPG maybe made by Square. That would be phenomenal. You know, there's so many ideas that I think would work with a Sonic team made by other developers and stuff. But I don't know, I think in terms of like, you know, the core games being made, I think it is at home in Japan, and I think I would love to see more Japanese developers work on Sonic than I would want to see Western ones. But I still do think, you know, the Western side of Sonic is fantastic in terms of coming up with ideas for the series and passion for the series. I mean, the Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, right, that came out was purely just, you know, Katie, the social media team, and a bunch of others just working on it, you know, with the characters we know and love, and IDW working on these characters. I feel like there's so much of that side of the games that I feel like can take cues, you know, and I think the passion of the series, you know, is a major part of it. And I would love if Sega embraced the fan games even more and more, right? Maybe like, you know, endorse them a bit more. Like that game Sonic and the Fallen Star, I feel like Sega should have just worked with it and be like, you know what, fuck it. We're gonna slap a Sega logo on there. We're gonna give you money from this, and we'll put this on stores because this is basically just a free 2D Sonic game for us. We didn't have to make. You can make money and all that. That's what they're doing with that game Sonic Speed Sim on Roblox, where like Sega has no involvement with it. They just kind of like, you know, give a thumbs up or thumbs down on what they're showing. But more stuff like that, you know, I would just love to see that. I know they'd have to, you know, focus on regulations, but that would be fire. Now that's on the game side, right? But we obviously have stuff like animations, right? I mean, we talk about Sonic animations. There really hasn't been anything notable Sonic animation wise from Japan in a while. I'm talking about 2D animation, right? In fact, Sonic Superstars, the opening intro that you guys have seen, is the first time a Japanese studio has worked on a 2D Sonic animation since Sonic CD, I'm pretty sure. You know, I'm pretty sure that's really it. And Sonic X, we'll talk about Sonic X as well. But yeah, no, that's been a long time since the Japanese studio was involved with the making of a Sonic animation. It's been mostly owned by the West, and that actually, you know, a little bit disappoints me, right? Obviously, you know, Japan is the heart of anime, right? And I would love Sonic to have more anime-like openings and animations. You think of Sonic X, right? One of the most beloved Sonic series to this day, a series that even while it's very flawed, people see it as their introduction to Sonic. And in fact, the Japanese script of Sonic X is way better than the Western one. The story is completely different. 4Kids obviously butchered things, but it did introduce it to a lot of people. But man, I would do anything for a Sonic X, you know, made again. You know, if they were just like, Sonic X is coming back, Trigger Studio is working on it, or Ufotable or Bones, like, oh my god, could you imagine one of the big heads of anime today working on some Sonic animation? God, it would look phenomenal. I would die for it, because again, to this day, Sonic CD's opening is magic. You know, it's magic in the way it moves, magic in the way it flows. And honestly, like, I don't know, like the Sonic Superstars opening has been criticized a lot, and that is a Japanese studio that worked on it. I don't know who worked on it, but it was a different team that did, and that wasn't necessarily the best result. But obviously I would love to see a major team work on it. But again, like when we think of Sonic in the West for animations, you know, obviously we have stuff like the Sonic movies that have been, you know, helmed here, you know, and obviously written here and done everything here, basically just getting, you know, some thumbs up from Sega, and obviously those have been mega successes. We have stuff like Sonic Mania Adventures, which was worked on by Tyson Hess. We even have the Team Sonic Racing animations. We have the Sonic Colors animations. We have a bunch of, you know, Western Sonic animations that happen here because of, again, more passionate teams and artists and stuff that want to work on it. Now, again, this isn't to say that I don't want more of that, or that passion isn't there in Japan. It's just that, I don't know, Sonic Team hasn't invested in it. But the one major thing I will give, obviously, you know, Sonic Animation in Japan is Marza Studio. Obviously, if you guys are aware of Sonic, the CGI openings and everything for those games have always been Marza. You know, you've gotten stuff like the Sonic Unleashed opening made there. You got stuff like the Sonic Frontiers CGI. All the CG animations openings you've seen for Sonic have pretty much all been made by Marza Studios. You know, and they are phenomenal. I think they know how to use Sonic's 3D model more than anything. They know how to give him cool expressions. They know how to move the character. I think they are phenomenal, and I would adore if they helmed an entire project by themselves. But they did help out on something that recently came up, which was Sonic Prime. Obviously, Sonic Prime, a 3D CGI show, and I think that show's been fantastic, and that was made by WildBrain Studio, which is actually here around here in Canada. But yeah, that's an animation that has been made here, and so I think when you really think of the bulk of Sonic's animations, right, they have been made here, and they've been mostly beloved here, right? But there are definitely sprinkles of things that, you know, from Japan that could, like, you know, be phenomenal. Like, again, I would love an entire movie made by Marza Studio. I would love Sonic Riders. You know, obviously it was the team that worked on the Attack on Titan opening, and that opening is iconic to Sonic. You know, people adored that one, and I would just love an entire series that looked like that. You know, so it's always like this weird double-edged debate, right, of like the Western teams here know how to make Sonic animations, and even on the YouTube side, right, we obviously see a bunch of fan animations and projects which are fantastic, right? But I would love to see more of the Japanese side of Sonic animations thrive a bit more. But I'm glad there's honestly a balance. You know, CGI stuff handled by Japan mostly, and then you have a lot more of the animation side and even movie side worked on by the West. But again, give me a bit more of that merger. You know, Paramount, work with Marza Studio, make a baby, get it in there, and then make a stylized, incredible spider. Could you imagine a Spider-Verse, like, you know, Puss in Boots or TMNT, whatever you want to call it, this modern, beautiful art style like type animation movie for Sonic? Oh my god, I would lose my fucking mind. In Japan, even event-wise, it's not the craziest for Sonic, right? They do have stuff, you know, like they have some Sonic Sega opening shops. You got like the Sega arcades, but I know here there's a lot of, you know, Sonic fan jam events, you know, for conventions, and there have been a bunch of fan events, or even stuff like Sage where they show off a bunch of video game stuff. We have the Sonic Speed Cafe right now open in San Diego for a little bit. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, you know, back and forth in terms of the marketing side, but it is definitely marketed towards the West more. I mean, Mario and a bunch of, you know, other characters took over more in Japan. The sales for Sonic were very soft in Japan until Sonic Frontiers. Sonic Frontiers was a big moment for Sonic in Japan. In fact, you know, that's how we had Vandalized. I mean, even music-wise, you think of Crush 40, they're from here, but you also think of, you know, Jun Senua and Otani, which are in Japan. They're fucking crazy with the music. So I think, you know, there's this consistent conversation of, you know, Sonic in the West versus Japan. You know, which one is more important, which one is more influential? And I think Sonic is definitely carried by, you know, the West in terms of keeping the series alive and relevant, but I still do think the heart of the series lives in, you know, the Japanese side, where Sonic Team is making these games. I just would love them to communicate more. You know, I think having more stuff like the murder of Sonic would be fire. I think having more fan input on the games would be fire. And, you know, we saw that with Sonic Frontiers, with Kishimoto just going on Twitter, talking to fans, asking what they'd love to see improved and stuff. So I think there is going to be a lot more, you know, merge mergers and conversations between both, but I think both have their value. I think in terms of the Western side, you have a lot more passionate fans, you know, but I think if Sonic continues to grow the way it is, you know, with Sonic movies even entering Japan too, and even Sonic Frontiers doing well, that we're gonna have more budget from the Japanese side, then maybe we could see more crazy stuff like Sonic animes and more crazy stylized stuff from there, different studios taking the realm there. I would love to see what kind of things they can mix and match, and I don't know, I want to see Sonic thrive on both sides. But guys, let me know what you think. You know, what's your favorite type of piece of Sonic content, you know, from either side? Which is something you'd like to see more of? Am I crazy? You know, let me know what you all think, and of course, I'll see you all next time. Peace out. I love you.